What will happen when in the future, due to an unknown threat, our sun starts getting destroyed? That means without the sun, Earth also cannot survive. But why is this happening? The secret behind all of this is hidden millions of kilometers away from Earth on an alien planet. So now, will humans be able to go to that alien planet and find a way to save Earth? Let's find out from the beginning about the 2026 most awaited sci-fi space movie, Project Hail Mary. Now, the story begins with an astronaut named Grace, who was just waking up in his spaceship. That's when the ship's AI told him that his condition is not good. His brain hasn't fully woken up from cryosleep yet, so he will have difficulty remembering past events for the next few days. Meanwhile, Grace can't understand how he got into this spaceship and where he is going. He couldn't remember anything. That's when he found stairs going up, and going up he sees that there are 2 other astronauts like him, lying unconscious. Then he looked outside through the spaceship's window and understood that he is currently in space. And here, not just Earth, but none of the planets from our solar system are present. That means he must be very far from Earth right now. Grace became very panicked about what is happening to him. Why can't he remember anything? So he now needs to find out from the AI as soon as possible how to get back to Earth. Grace quickly finds the ship's control room, and then he told the ship's AI to turn the ship around right now and head back towards Earth. But after hearing the AI's response, Grace was completely shocked. The AI revealed that he is currently 11 light years away from Earth. That means even if they turn back, it will take them 11 years to return. Grace quickly calculates that if he is currently 11 light years away from Earth, then his ship must be in another galaxy right now. That's when he started to remember bits and pieces. How, when he was on Earth, scientists discovered that our sun is gradually slowing down. Its energy is decreasing. So Grace first shaves his beard in the ship and tries to clean up the area around him. That's when he found the album of himself and the other 2 astronauts. And he learned that when they were coming on this journey, during cryosleep his other 2 companions had died, and he alone survived. So he needs to remember as soon as possible what his mission was in coming to this alien galaxy. Actually, Grace was a science teacher at a school on Earth. A child asked him whether it's true that our sun is dying, and Grace started telling them everything. Just like this, 2 years ago, scientists noticed that from the planet Venus, an infrared light line was going towards the sun, which is now called the Petrova line. This line was made of microorganisms that were born on Venus and reached the sun, and then they started eating the sun. According to scientists, these are microorganisms that keep multiplying by consuming the sun's energy, and if this continues, in just the next 20 years, Earth's temperature will drop so much that no one will survive here. However, so that the children wouldn't be scared, Grace reassures them that there's nothing to worry about. Scientists will surely find some solution to this problem by then. Then a few days later, a woman named Ava came to meet Grace. She told him that she is from NASA's Petrova Line research team, the team of scientists researching how to save the sun. Ava told him that they found an old thesis written by Grace, in which he had stated that water is essential for alien life to survive. So Ava has now come to recruit Grace into her team as well. However, Grace started to leave after hearing this, because it was that very thesis that got him fired from his job. But then she followed him and convinced him again that he can now use his abilities to save the world. Now, Grace loved science very much, so he agreed and went with her to the lab. Here, the scientists gave Grace a sample of the same microorganism that was born on Venus and is now eating the sun. So Grace, wearing a safety suit, started researching those microorganisms, while the other scientists stood outside waiting. Who knows? Maybe Grace could find their weakness and they could save the sun from them. Now, after hours of hard work, Grace noticed that this microorganism is a living cell, which made everyone very excited. If it's alive, then there must be some way to kill it. But Grace couldn't find anything like that. He now started trying to figure out what they're made of. He found out that they were made of oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon, and they don't need water to survive. That means his thesis was wrong, which made Grace come out disappointed. Since his old theory turned out to be wrong, he no longer had confidence in himself. But then Ava came and told him that our universe is infinite, and everything is possible in it that humans could never even imagine. Like these microorganisms that are eating the sun's energy, something like this was considered almost impossible by humans until now. But still, the universe made it possible. So Grace shouldn't give up, and he should work with them to try to understand the universe. Then they will succeed in saving the sun and Earth. After this, Eva gives Grace 3 microorganism samples for research. After that, Grace spent the coming weeks dedicated to this research. He gave up everything from his job to his social life. He stayed in his lab all the time and only went out to get work supplies. Then over time, from experimenting on these microorganisms, Grace made a new discovery. He understood that since these microorganisms consume the sun's energy, all of the sun's energy gets accumulated in them. After all, it's a rule of the universe that energy is never destroyed. It just gets transferred. That means they can use these microorganisms for their own benefit. With this, humans can fulfill their energy needs. Grace realized that they need a carbon-rich and hot environment, like the one near the sun. Then they could reproduce these microorganisms here on Earth as well and increase their numbers. After which, Grace creates a box in a dark room in which those microorganisms successfully reproduced, and then they started multiplying. Until now, this was only possible near the sun, but Grace demonstrated it on Earth as well. But their mission was to destroy these microorganisms, not to multiply them. So how would that be possible? Now Grace immediately goes to tell Eva about his discovery, who was currently on a Navy ship. So Eva took Grace to a hall full of scientists to present his discovery, where, after a little nervousness, Grace explains his entire discovery, how he learned to reproduce these microorganisms far from the sun, here on Earth, and how they can be used as fuel for humans. Then a scientist asks how long it would take them to produce 2 million kilograms of microorganisms. However, Grace couldn't even understand why they needed so many. That's when Eva stood up and revealed in front of everyone that they have now made Grace the head of their mission to save the sun, Project Hail Mary. Eva starts telling everyone how actually it's not just our sun, but all the nearby stars are also dying the same way. That means these microorganisms have reached all the nearby stars. But there is one exception. In a nearby galaxy, there is a star that is still burning just like before, and it is located 12 light years away from our Earth. So NASA has decided that they will build a ship and go there to find out why this is happening. When the sun, along with other stars, are dying, what is it about that star that is saving it? Then if they can discover that secret, they can save our sun too, and Earth will never be destroyed. However, until now they had the problem of fuel to power the ship, because they would need to fly the ship at light speed to reach that alien star before Earth is destroyed. But now, with Grace's new discovery, they will use those microorganisms as fuel in their ship. This solved their problem too, and now they can fly their ship at light speed. However, there is still a shortcoming in this entire mission. They will travel to that star, but the ship won't have enough fuel to return to Earth. So the astronauts who go there will have to send their research and all findings back to Earth via a probe, but they themselves cannot come back. That means all the astronauts going on this mission will stay forever in that alien galaxy and die there. That means whoever goes on this mission will die alone, millions of kilometers away from Earth and their loved ones, completely alone in space, but by doing so they can save the Earth. Now in the present, Grace checks his other 2 dead astronauts in the ship and pays tribute to them, saying that he will try his best to complete their mission. Then Grace released both bodies into space. Meanwhile, the ship doesn't have much time left to reach that star. Then one day, when Grace was remembering his days on Earth in the virtual reality room, suddenly a countdown started in the ship, and the entire ship's gravity was suddenly disabled. So Grace immediately started looking through the ship's external camera to see why this is happening. He noticed that he has now reached very close to his destination, that star. And here too, just like our sun, the same microorganisms have formed a Petrova line. But for strange reasons, despite this line, this star is not dimming. Its energy is not decreasing. That's when Grace noticed that the microorganisms line has been blocked by some kind of objects, and these objects are acting as a shield around this star. Grace was just watching this when the ship's AI alerted him that they are receiving a notification about an alien object approaching them, and Grace was stunned to see that a very massive and strange metal-built alien ship is now hovering above his ship. It was clear humans cannot build such technology, so Grace, sensing danger, quickly started moving away from this alien ship, but that ship started following him, as if it was deliberately trying to make contact with Grace's ship. Then that alien ship started throwing objects towards Grace's ship. Grace immediately ducked down, fearing a blast, thinking it might be a bomb, but that object bounced off the ship and returned. Then, after a while, more things were thrown, which were coming a bit slower this time. So Grace understood that this is not a threat to him, but could be a message from the aliens. Besides, he would become the first human to make contact with any alien life. So this time, Grace decides to catch that object, and wearing a spacesuit, he went outside the ship to get that alien object. However, in space, he couldn't control himself and kept stumbling. Meanwhile, that object was continuously moving towards his ship. Eventually, Grace somehow managed to grab it and brought it back into his ship. Upon opening it, he found a strange structure inside. It was made of some strange rocks and metal. But what is it? Grace couldn't figure it out, so he started researching it. He needed to find out what kind of technology these aliens use. That's when he noticed outside that some long poles came out from that alien ship and connected to his ship, and soon that entire alien ship was fully connected to Grace's ship. Grace now puts on his safety suit and opens the door to look, the same door that was connected to his ship. He looked inside and saw that a tunnel had formed all around them. So Grace now gathers his courage and goes inside. Then he slowly reached the gate of that alien ship. That's when he heard a strange sound of some creature, which initially scared Grace, but then from the other side of the glass, he saw a rock-like hand. This hand was showing him a replica of the human body and his ship. That means these aliens are trying to understand humans, same as Grace, who now wanted to learn about these aliens. Then that alien gestures for Grace to go back to his ship, and as soon as Grace went back, those connecting pipes now connected to another door of Grace's ship. Meanwhile, Grace also started gathering some instruments from his ship so that this time he could find a way to communicate with the aliens. He now came out through that new door where this time there was a glass barrier in front of him. And then finally, that alien appeared in its full form on the other side of the glass in front of Grace. Grace was amazed to see that this alien's entire body was made of a very strong rock-like material, which initially scared Grace. But he quickly realized that the alien was just imitating him. It must want to learn human gestures. Now whatever Grace did, the alien would do the same. Then Grace noticed that this alien doesn't have anything like a head on its body. On Earth, every creature has a head somewhere, but this alien life had nothing like that. Its entire body looks the same from every side. That alien now started pointing to the previously thrown objects. That means it was trying to communicate with Grace through them. Actually, both of them were trying to understand each other, to learn each other's language. And Grace, after many attempts, finally understands that this alien is asking him to remove his helmet. However, Grace was too scared to do so and started heading back. But then he realized that the object in his hand was indicating an oxygen model. So he gathered his courage and took off his helmet, and surprisingly, he could breathe perfectly fine here. Grace then came back to his ship and checked the other objects that the alien had thrown at him earlier. He realized that the second object was a model of the microorganism Petrova line. That means these aliens have also come to research this star to save their own planet. They also need to find out why it's not dimming, how it survived those microorganisms. So Grace now goes back to that alien and tries to explain that they both came here from their respective planets for the same reason. Grace started trying different methods to talk to it, through numbers or other means, but still, not much progress was made. They still couldn't understand each other properly, so to make things easier, Grace first tells it his name. Then, based on the alien's body structure, he named it Rocky, and taught it the thumbs-up gesture, meaning something is working correctly. But Rocky, imitating him, turns the thumb down instead. Maybe that's their way. Then Grace showed it a clock and started explaining how time is measured on Earth. In response, the alien Rocky also showed him a strange structure. And after a while, Grace understood that this object serves as a clock for these aliens. They measure time with it. From here, Grace started creating software on his computer based on their communication so far, which would help him fully understand Alien Rocky's language. And within the next few hours, he succeeded in completing this software. That means now both of them can finally understand each other's words. Alien Rocky first told about himself, how he too had come from his planet to research the star. They were 23 members in total, but during this journey, his other 22 companions died, and now Rocky is the only one left on their entire ship. same as Grace, whose 2 companions had also died, and Grace shared all this with Rocky too, after which both decided that they would work together on further research on this star and plan together to find a way to remove those microorganisms and save their respective planets. Meanwhile, Grace had been awake for about 2 days now. Because of the alien ship encounter and decoding Rocky's language, he had been awake for the past 2 days, so Grace tells Rocky to sleep for a while. However, alien Rocky told him that on his planet, they can work for many months without sleeping. Then they sleep for many months at a stretch. But on Earth, it doesn't work like that for humans. Grace, while sleeping, starts remembering his days on Earth again, when he was being introduced to the 3 astronauts selected for this mission. That means initially, he was never supposed to come on this mission himself. And those 3 selected astronauts had no problem with the fact that after going to that star, they would never return to Earth. But they would have the chance to sacrifice themselves and save Earth. Now in the present, Grace, working with Rocky, has finally reached very close to that star. That's when he saw that alien Rocky has now entered his ship in a glass-like structure. Actually, these aliens cannot survive in any other environment, so this glass structure acts as a spacesuit for them. After this, Grace started recording everything he was learning about these aliens along with his mission, so that the scientists on Earth could learn about this alien life. He told everything, how their way of eating is very strange. Besides, this alien Rocky can hear everything and see through walls. Grace was still speaking very softly in the video, but Rocky heard even that. Anyway, now both of them together move forward with their main plan. They will now orbit around the star where the microorganisms breed, and from there they will collect a sample. Then they need to figure out how this star has survived these microorganisms until now. Grace now starts preparing his ship for this journey. That's when the AI tells him it will take them 11 days. So during this time, Grace starts showing Rocky about Earth through the virtual reality room, what humans and other creatures are like there, how they live. From nature to entertainment, Grace showed him everything. Then Rocky also tells Grace that on his planet too, they form families just like humans and have children. That means finally, one similarity was found between both planets, where Rocky also wants to complete this mission and return to his family, where his wife and children on his home planet are waiting for his mission to be completed. Then Rocky asked if Grace also has a partner on Earth, to which Grace replied that he doesn't have a partner either. But there used to be a girl once, but because Grace was always lost in his world of science and busy with his alien thesis, she left him. However, hearing this, Rocky in return tells him that he has been with his partner for 186 years in human time, and they have never been apart. Now, 186 years, it was clear that these aliens live much longer lives than humans. This reminded Grace of the time when he was preparing for this mission and was with scientists and astronauts at a Navy facility. Grace left the party there and went outside to meet Eva and started talking to her. Grace was asking Eva, in amazement, how these astronauts are so happy even knowing that after going to that star, they're never coming back. This is the last mission of their lives. To which Eva replied that they want to save Earth and their loved ones living on it. That's why for these astronauts, it's a matter of pride that they can sacrifice themselves and do something for their people, save their planet. At that time, Grace could never understand this sacrifice. Meanwhile, in the present, Grace and Rocky have reached that star. And since the star didn't have a name yet, Grace says they can both name this planet together. Now, alien Rocky suggests a name from his side, which according to him should be medium rough texture circle planet, basically describing its structure. But Grace said that we humans don't name things on Earth based on their structure, but rather on words that are personally and emotionally connected to us humans and our history, like every human space mission is named after some god or mythology. Then Grace named this planet Adrian from his side, and Rocky agreed to it too. Then Grace now takes a sample of the microorganisms here and compares them with the ones from Earth. He saw that they are basically the same. Life exists in these microorganisms in a very tiny form too. But here on this star Adrian, a second type of bacteria also exists, a bacteria that can eat these microorganisms. And now, with this new secret revealed, both were completely stunned. Both understood that this is why these microorganisms haven't been able to eat the star's energy, because here, on this Adrian star, bacteria have developed that actually eat these very microorganisms, and these bacteria have formed a shield around the star. That's why this star hasn't fallen prey to these microorganisms like the sun and other stars. Rocky also shares his calculations with Grace, how the living organisms present on this Adrian star are killing the microorganisms like predators. So if they can take this predator bacteria to their homes, their respective planets, then they can save their own stars too. That means Grace can save our sun, and Rocky can save his planet's star. But for this, both need to collect this microbacteria, or in Rocky's words, predator bacteria, from the clouds of this Adrian planet. But the problem now is that this ship is not capable of reaching this massive star. It can never withstand the gravity pressure of this massive star. Now, Rocky gave the idea that they can make a chain through which they can descend down to the bacteria-filled clouds, but both knew that Grace is not a professional pilot, so Rocky now trains him first. Meanwhile, Grace explained his plan to send the bacteria back via a probe, how he needs to send that bacteria and all the data via a rocket. However, hearing this, Rocky gets confused about why Grace won't go back to his planet with the samples, to which Grace explained that this had been his mission from day one. Actually, he doesn't have enough fuel to return, and he only has a few years worth of food left. That means he will eventually have to die here. But then Rocky tells him that no, he doesn't need to worry about fuel to go back home anymore. He can give him 2 million kilos of microorganisms from his own supply. But because of this, it will take him 6 extra years to get back home. Rocky said that he couldn't save his 22 crew members, but now he won't let this happen to someone else again. Grace became emotional hearing this, because he had accepted that after this mission, he was never going back to Earth. But now Rocky has solved all his problems, so Grace thanks Rocky that so far away in space, he found someone of his own. By now, Rocky had also learned to hug, and both became friends like brothers. Grace now starts remembering when, before this mission, he was once talking to Eva, but then, during a rocket test, a terrible accident happened. Meanwhile, in the present, the ship was slowly moving towards that star. Then, when they got into the right position, they lowered the sample collector with the chain. Soon, the collector gathered the necessary bacteria from the clouds, which was enough for both of them, and then Grace went outside to retrieve it. That's when he noticed that their satellite had caught a bit of fire, so after pulling the collector back, Grace quickly started taking the ship out of this planet's orbit. But the ship soon started showing attitude warnings, meaning the ship is not stable. Grace went outside and saw that their ship was now descending below the cloud level. That means they would crash and die like this. And then a piece of the ship broke off and hit him, causing Grace to fall down. Also, their sample collector started dangling below. By now, the outside temperature had become dangerous, so Rocky said they could try again. Risking their lives for these samples right now is not wise, but Grace doesn't think they'll get another chance. And to save both planets' lives, he takes this risk and moves forward. Grace now grabs the collector and hangs on with the help of the chain. Then Grace swings and throws all the samples into the ship with his hands, and then he uses the ship's full power and finally gets out of the planet's orbit. But by now, one of their fuel tanks had leaked and was still attached to the ship. So Grace somehow manages to eject the fuel tank, but in the process, his head hit something and he fell unconscious, meaning he would soon die. But then Rocky, to save his life, finally comes out of his safe shell. Then he pulled Grace out and put an oxygen mask on him so he could breathe. Meanwhile, Rocky cannot survive in this environment, so his condition started deteriorating and he began dying. Meanwhile, in Grace's past, during that blast, one astronaut had died, so NASA urgently needed another astronaut to replace him for the mission. That's when everyone started looking at Grace with hopeful eyes. However, Grace refused, saying he is not an astronaut. But Ava explains to him that they don't need an astronaut right now, but an expert who knows these microorganisms well. And currently in their entire team, there is no other expert besides Grace. Besides, the entire discovery of using these microorganisms as fuel was also found by Grace in his research. However, Grace knew deep down that if he goes on this mission, he would never return to Earth. This is a one-way trip. So he firmly decides to say no to it. Now in the present time, Grace finally opens his eyes in his spaceship where Rocky had saved his life. But now he can't see Rocky anywhere. Then, following his carbon traces, he realizes that Rocky came out of his safe shell to save his life, because of which he is now slowly dying, while Grace can't do anything to save him. However, their work was now complete. Grace extracts those bacteria and performs a successful test showing how this bacteria kills those microorganisms. That means with this bacteria, he has saved both his and Rocky's planets, and Grace, exhausted, fell asleep right there. But a little while later, when his eyes opened, he saw that Rocky was tapping beside him. Luckily, he had returned to his shell and finally survived. Grace got up and hugged him with joy, because he thought he had lost his friend. Then he showed Rocky all his bacteria with happiness, which will now save both their planets. Grace now, in the name of their friendship, gives Rocky a spongy Earth toy that will always remind him of Grace. Meanwhile, in the past, Grace reached Ava's office to refuse. He said he doesn't have the courage to go on this mission. He's afraid of dying alone in space so far from Earth. But now, in the present, that same scared Grace has completed his mission and is safely heading back to his planet Earth. He now said his final goodbye to Rocky, because from now on their paths will separate. After all, their planets are so far from each other that they can't even contact each other regularly, after which both ships separated and they set off in their respective ships towards their respective planets. Here, Grace's ship AI told him that it will take 4 full years to reach Earth, but just as he was about to go into cryosleep, after a short while, alarms started going off throughout the ship. Grace quickly ran and noticed that the bacteria he had stored from that planet had now started eating the fuel microorganisms themselves. And since this ship runs on the microorganism fuel and the metal container in which he had kept the bacteria, this bacteria can easily eat through it. That's when he realized that he could fix his ship and save the bacteria. But what if this bacteria causes a problem with alien Rocky's ship? Because his entire ship is made of that same metal. That means he won't survive. Now, after Grace's calculations, he had only 2 options. Either he goes back home to Earth or he saves Rocky. After which Grace, thinking about everything, makes a tough decision. He first safely packs all his research and bacteria and sends them along with his journal in a safe rocket to Earth, and then he himself sets off with his ship towards Rocky to save him. Luckily, he reaches Rocky just in time and finally saves Rocky's life. Both friends hug again. Destiny has brought them together once more. Meanwhile on Earth, all of Grace's research and bacteria had arrived by now. She checks his videos, through which she learned about that alien and Grace's friendship, how both of them worked together and saved their respective planets. That means Grace had become the biggest hero for Earth. Meanwhile, on the other side, Grace wakes up to an alarm sound. Actually, after saving Rocky, he had come to Rocky's planet with him. Then he built a safe habitat for himself there, where he could breathe. Now, just like every day, Rocky comes to visit him today too. He gave Grace the good news that their scientists have arranged both a ship and fuel for Grace to go back home. But now Grace said he doesn't even feel like going back anymore. After all, he had no one of his own on Earth. Well, here he has a friend like Rocky. Besides, he hasn't even explored this alien planet of Rocky's yet. Then Grace saw the other children of this planet and decided that he will first get to know this alien life well and stay here to have new adventures. With this happy ending, this amazing sci-fi adventure movie ends here. Subscribe to the channel for more brand new sci-fi movies like this.